สวัสดีครับ This time I will talk a bit about the going ons inside the House of Representatives of Thailand, which you may recall that many sessions of the parliament had to be cancelled because there was not enough number of members of parliament attending the session. So the sessions were either being postponed or cancelled. And if you go back several months and so on, it's about 17, 18 times already that the parliament session or the session of the House of Representatives were not being able to start because of the lack of quorum. At least we need about 240 members of parliament, of the members of the House of Representatives for the session to be officially open. But for 17 times, the number of 240 about could not be reached. So in that sense, there is disappointment and outcry why the House of Representatives for the past few weeks and months and so on has not been able to hold the official session to push forward the work of the House of Representatives in terms of supervision of the performance of the executive side, amending laws, introducing new laws, and so on, And I think the problem has very much to do with the particular behavior of some members of parliament or groups of parliamentarians or members of the House of Representatives. And I think the root cause of it was the fact that some factions within the main coalition partner or government, the Palang Pracharat Party, some factions wanted to have some of their leaders or members become a cabinet minister. But General Prayut Chan-o-cha, the Prime Minister, did not comply to their wishes. So instead of keep on holding the dialogue and having consultation and so on, these members of parliament or members of the House of Representatives recourse to putting political pressure on General Prayut Chan-o-cha, Prime Minister. And one of the pressures or measures to press General Prayut Chan-o-cha to comply is the non-attendance of the session of the House of Representatives. So making, I think, the running of government as a whole paralyzed. And so far, this tug of war is still going on and will go on, I think, for the next few weeks to come and so on. And so General Prayut Chan-o-cha is under heavy pressure to fight, to stand for principle or to comply to the wishes of some factions of the party that is the, I think, foundation or the supporting party of his government and himself as the Prime Minister of Thailand. So the problem of the, I think, the inability of the House of Representatives to go on with this work, I think it has three negative effects. One, it shows the disrespect of the members, the wayward members of the House of Representatives, these parliamentarians, disrespect for the people who elected them as a whole. So it's a disrespectful act of the MPs towards their constituents or to the people in general or to the public in general. Second is the demonstration of the disrespect for parliamentary democracy. If you are a member of a parliament or the House of Representatives, you have to have the honor and the respect for the institution that you belong. It's where you get your income That's why you can perform for the public good. But by not attending the sessions of the House of Representatives, you are not giving due respect and disowning the parliamentary system. The third point is that because of this wayward MPs do not attend the session of the House of Representatives, and the House of Representatives is part and parcel, very important indeed, of the democratization process of Thailand. And in not attending the parliamentary session or the session of the House of Representatives is, I think, inadvertently undermining the very fabrics of Thai democracy. So this is what is going on, and it cannot go on. Then the problem is who is to redress this situation. I think the first responsibility would come to the party leaders and the Secretary General of the respective parties where I think the MPs belong. Second is the responsibility of the Speaker of the House by the name of Kun Chuan Lik Pai. Third would be the, I think, Election Commission. They have to look also that this non-attendance of parliamentary session, does it reflect, I think, the terms of reference of the political parties and the members of the parliament or not. Then the other institution that could be involved is the Constitutional Court. The other one is the, I think, the Ethics Committee of the Parliament or of the House of Representatives. So there are quite a few institutions that have to have a thorough look at this behavior of members of Parliament, that they cannot play politics, that they cannot think about their own vested interests to the detriment of democratic parliamentary system or to democracy of Thailand as a whole. And they cannot, I think, disappoint the wishes and the hope of the people who are their own masters. They are the representative of the people and they have to serve the people. But they have been, I think, for the past few months thinking about their own political career and political advancement without due regards and respect to the people, to the parliament, and to the democracy of the Kingdom of Thailand as a whole. So we, the people and so on, together with the members of the various political parties and so on, must take this into account and must act to reprimand, to push the political parties and wayward members of parliaments or the House of Representatives to behave accordingly. They have to do everything for the goodness of the country, but not for their own vested interests and self-seeking benefits. Otherwise, I think people will become disillusioned with parliamentary system in a democratic context. And there will be more, I think, wish for a more authoritarian type of government, which would not bode well for Thailand as a whole. And it would be, I think, more damaging to the democratic fabrics of the Kingdom of Thailand. And then the other point is General Prayut himself. I think I have been observing that he is not a quitter and he will not be blackmailed. He will not be, I think, pressured to comply to the things that he believes that should not be correct. That is just simply to give cabinet posts to some of the members of parliament in order to retain, I think, the support and the majority inside the parliament. I think he will take up a stand as a soldier, old soldier, never died. And I think he has quite a few options. He could take over or become a leader of a political party and rally for more support from politicians as well as from the public in general. Second, he could think about having a sort of emergency decree to rule by emergency decree or to rely only on the executive power. Pending, I think, the what you call the the restart of a new parliamentary session, because this parliamentary session will end at the end of this February, and there will be session for about 3 months from April, March to May. So during that time of non-parliamentary session, General Prayut will have time to regroup himself, and take the leadership of a political party. So he still has some time to do that. And once he could organize himself with a political party, and he could think about dissolving the parliament by the month of June and go for the new elections, and he will be leading a political party, and there will be some sort of I think coalition partners. Other political parties might come back to join him to win the next election. So there are several options. Then the last one, another option would not be by General Prayut himself, but I think it's the military or the armed forces establishment. You have known that Thai politics interwoven between civilian and military rules. And whenever there is political problems inside the parliament, outside the parliament, it would give the pretext of the military intervention in politics. Hopefully that would not happen. But if the country and democracy is to be, in a state of instability, one way from a traditional point of view of Thai politics is for the intervention of the military side into politics to clean up the mess and set the table of democracy in place once again. So that could also be a possibility. But hopefully, General Prayut, leaders of political parties, members of parliament, and so on, will have the senses of coming together to the negotiating table, forge a compromise, and to move democracy forward, so that we would not have to fall back to authoritarian rule again. So that's a homework for all of us, to see that people will act with common sense, and I think still retain the wish to work for the goodness of the country and not to keep on doing things for their own vested interest. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณมากครับ